Happy Thursday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect.
I guess how does that inform, other things like, for example, maybe, or does it determine things like how much you flare your arms during a bench press or how you point your feet during a squat? Is that how it works?
Well, now that you brought it up, okay. So when we look at the archetypes and you look at the horizontal element of the helical angle of, say, a wide ISA individual, they're not going to be as great at reaching overhead as someone that has a more vertical helical angle. And so, yeah, you kind of do play with that a little bit as far as what those extremity orientation is going to be, like what is going to be an optimal direction of force production. It's gonna predispose somebody to be better at certain things. And so, yeah, you might play with those angles a little bit and then find your optimal.
Mhm.
And,
Okay.
like I said, it's not an absolute by any stretch of the imagination.
Mhm.
It's a guide, right? It allows you to have a starting point. Many of the things that we talk about are just starting points, right? So when I talk about archetypes, it's like, how do you start somebody? How do you know where to begin? It's a guide. It directs you towards, okay, you're probably going to be better at this than you are at something else. Let's start with where you're most successful.
Well, I've been like thinking about Pavlov presses. In one of your recent videos, you put up a demonstration of one.
I did.
And
okay.
well, context. Hang on, it's coming. So I could see the line of force. Like say you're holding your hands out in front and the pull is going to the right. I could see that almost mimicking gravity and kind of forcing you to go left and push you out of the right side. The same way you would use a ground to help push you up and like expand the top. When using a Pavlov press, and let's just say it is pulling you to the right, do you normally use it to pull further to the right or pull you out of the right to the left?
What's the intent?
You can shape it to whatever you want, right?
Absolutely. So this is so think about like an offset load on a split squat.
Yeah.
All by if I put the load on the right side or I put the load on the left side, depending on which leg is forward, I've changed the exercise, haven't I? I've made it easier to do one thing and harder to do the other. And so again, you just have to decide what the intent is. Am I trying to capture a position or promote range of motion? I have to do one thing, because if I do the opposing strategy, I've made it harder. And there's times to do that. It's like, so once I can capture a position, now I may want to challenge you and say, make yourself get there. Now that you have the potential to do it, right? Now I want to apply a resistance to make it just a little bit more challenging, right? Because so let's just say, all right, right leg forward, split squat, right side load. Easier to drive external rotation coming up out of the split squat in that situation. Harder to drive internal rotation under those circumstances. So am I trying to capture the internal rotation at the bottom, or am I trying to make it easier to come out of the bottom? You see,
Right.
it's like so that's why I'm such a stickler about not wanting people to think that there is only a way, right? People think that there is a good posture. It doesn't exist.
Hey, Bill.
There you are. Okay.
Good morning. I had a question about, I noticed in a lot of the exercises, you prioritize the foot position first before doing like the pelvis, the knees, and all that stuff.
Yes,
So
sir.
during moving, so let's just say during gait, does the like the early propulsion, mid propulsion, late propulsion, does it begin at the foot and go up the extremity? Is that why you're prioritizing the foot position first?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Okay.
Do you need
Just
more
wondering.
than that? Yeah. So think about it. It's like, so what sensory input do you have if I'm standing up, right? Other than, my spatial senses that I use, vision, audition, etc., right? What is the most impactful sensation that you have? I only have contact with the ground. And so if you look at, I tell you what, if you look at shoe research, this is where it really starts to show up. So they'll take like 3 different kinds of shoes, right, that are supposed to do different things to feet. And I think it's Desharry, I think is the researcher's name, D-I, it's Scharry or something like that. Desharry. And what they did is they actually stuck markers in the bones of the feet, which must have been just the most pleasant of experiences. And then they put them in different shoes, and then they monitored the bones of the feet. And what they found is that the feet don't really change much at all, regardless of what type of shoe you put someone in. However, what did change is the upstream muscle activity. And so it's kind of a big deal. So again, when you don't have a contact that's coming up from the ground, then the message doesn't get propagated up as to what you may want to be capturing in the hip or the pelvic orientation or the rest of the axial skeleton. So I'm very particular about how I orient the feet, depending on where I want them in this propulsive cycle.
Okay, and that's why using arm positions to get ribcage changes works as well, because you have another reference.
Absolutely. Well, so hands are the same thing. Anytime you put somebody's hands in contact with a surface, you get feedback proximally, right? So that's a big deal too. That's a common error, is not attending to where your hand contact is. So again, you have to, anytime, and this goes for any exercise, you have to decide, like, what is my intent here? And then how are we going to execute this? And then what am I willing to allow to happen, right? If your goal is excursion, then you have to minimize the compensatory strategies. Mm-hmm. If your goal is force, you might have to maximize those, but also monitor, all other key performance indicators to make sure that you're not creating an interference.
Being that you could manipulate the pull-up, like I could have one hand supinated, one hand pronated if I want to. Does it make sense to bend the bar, when they say bend the bar, or just put your hands up and it'll do the job? Or it depends type question.
Well, what is bending the bar for?
You're trying to create the ER or the IR as much as you can.
Right. So and again, with a chin up, it's really hard to do that, right? The bending of the bar thing tends to be more associated with pressing activities, right? Uh-huh. Because when you think about the difference between the press, it's like I have to lower the weight into a position, and to get to that position, I need external rotation, right? And so the force of ER is what you're doing, right? You're trying to drive external rotation, because that's where my space is going to be created to allow me to move into that position, because the compressive load of the weight might be so much that I cannot externally rotate at all, right? And so I have to provide an influence that buys me whatever few degrees of range of motion I need to complete the lift.